Hello and welcome to episode 153 of Just Keep Writing.
A podcast for writers.
By writers.
To keep you writing.
I'm Marshall.
I'm Nick.
I'm Brent.
I'm LP. And today we are going to be talking about Half Bad, The Bastard Son, and the Devil Himself. It was a show on Netflix that had me enthralled. I can't say that I've watched less than 13 times. And I loved it. And Brent watched it, and Brent loved it. And I was like, y'all got to watch this because we need to talk about this. So we're going to talk about Half Bad, The Bastard Son, and the Devil Himself. One of the longest and best titles in the history of titles, by the way. This is going to be a spoiler-tastic episode. So if you have not watched Half Bad, I recommend you sit down, watch those 8 episodes, because we're going to go through episode by episode, and we're going to try to blow your mind.
And it might be worth throwing it. We'll throw it in the Discord. If you didn't hear this or didn't see it in the Discord, hopefully you've had a heads up by now and you've at least watched some of it, because I think it's important to at least know what we're talking about. We don't get to talk about TV shows that often. And I don't know, as soon as LP said watch a TV show, I'm like, oh, I'm in. And then my wife had already started watching it apparently. And so her and I finished watching it together. And I didn't realize you would watch it 13 times. Seems like a lot, but I'm stoked that I've seen it once, and I can't wait to see what you got to talk about, man. So take it away, buddy.
Oh, fuck yeah, bro. This is going to be great. Okay, so I'm going to throw out some stuff to describe the show. And then, if you feel like I'm missing something, please chime in. So Half Bad is about a young man who is of mixed parentage. He is Blood Witch on one side and Fairborn on the other. He lives in a world that is a lot like our own, but the magic exists parallel to the mundanes, the Fanes. And because he is the child of the baddest Blood Witch to ever do blood shit, they watch him. They watch him like a hawk. He's under a police state, if you will. And people who are Fairborns, they keep fucking with him, and so he fucks back, and then the show goes off. And that's essentially how it starts. There's some stuff that I'm sure Brent and I are going to talk about a little later, but that's where we begin.
I don't know. I feel like you guys have some secret thing like I'm really can't wait to figure out, because looking at your faces and before we start recording, I was like, look, I watched the show and you guys are like cackling to each other. I was like, what the fuck are we going to be talking about? Because something else is going on here that I don't maybe know.
You go get it, fam. You go get it. It's coming. You got this. You got this. Okay, so episode 1 of Half Bad. 16-year-old Nathan Byrne tries his best to fit in at school and at home, but his father's deadly legacy casts a long shadow. So this is the episode where we see the hunters come and visit the house where he's a baby, his older sister is a little older and watching a game while her mother's blood is in the air because she's dead and shit. And then grandma takes over parentage. And then we fast forward to him being a teenager and him and his sister have a contentious relationship. He meets, what's that girl's name?
Annalise.
Oh Lord Jesus! So his sister's
not like our Annalise Keating though. Let's not get that.
Oh no!
No one can ever be Annalise Keating.
Spelled differently, okay? Phonetically, if you will. Ew. What's up, Marshall?
So the relationship I think I liked in this first episode more than anything was that, and I don't know if this is this one or part of the second one too, is that what's her name, Celia, that comes and like checks to see if he's like hearing heartbeats and all that stuff. Like that relationship, that dynamic between them, I thought was really interesting, and I thought they did a good job of like making that kind of pay off throughout the show. So I just had to put that out there. I know we're going to talk about Annalise.
I mean, we can talk about Celia too. She's a big part of his life. She comes in every month. She cuts him to see how quickly he heals, because apparently blood witches heal faster than Fairborn witches. And okay, this is also set in Britain, right? So like Fairborn witches are most of the witches in Britain, and like there are no blood witches in the UK. Just a heads up, just a little context. We're coming back for that.
I mean, you got to elaborate on that too. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I know you're going to talk about something similar to this. I also noticed that the Blood Witches are very Germanic and Scandinavian areas in of descent, while the Fairborns were very much English and high class. And I know there's some classism in that one, which I found very interesting from the show.
I mean, Brent, you want to start this?
I don't know what your direction is, LP, to go with this one, but it's like what I liked about the show. Let me start there.
Yeah.
And what I'm really thrilled about is it not only tackling greed and power and control. There's a caste system and classism. There's racism in there that's very on the nose.
But the Brits didn't get it. That's the part that cracks me up.
What?
The Brits didn't get it. The Brits didn't see the racism that's like the book is actually worse, but that's another conversation.
The book is worse, oh boy.
Yeah, but I think what I like about it that it all comes together and hinges on a few couple little things and people, and the impact of one impacts the many. And I think that's kind of like one of the things that I like about it is you're seeing like real-time consequences, and other shows do the same thing. The way that they're telling the story and it's coming about, it just feels different. Yeah. So that's what I liked about it.
Okay, so I guess my initial thought on the first episode, I almost didn't keep going after the first episode because I was like, this is too much. Like this is pissing me off. Like everybody in Nathan's life sucks.
Right?
Like everybody. Even as they try to portray the grandmother as like the one kind soul, I'm like, no, you ain't shit either. Because that Jessica is a little monster. And you let her terrorize this boy anyway. You do nothing to check the fact that this girl is a psychopath.
Let's highlight that though. She's a psycho without bad influences on her.
Yeah, so that's even more reason to get her ass away from Nathan.
Wait. Hold on.
That girl does not change. That's the one consistency in the whole show.
Wait, no, hold on.
Talking about the sister, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's a reason. No, there's a reason. There's definitely a reason. But that's also that, and this is why I blame the grandmother though, because that is a reason that should have been checked until that girl got it through her head that the reason that it has nothing to do with your brother who didn't choose to be here. So the fact that it got as bad as it was with Jessica made me side eye that grandma so hard, and this is actually some zeitgeist shit because we something that's been coming up in the conversation recently is older white women dealing with their biracial children. I think because of a certain Lee Daniels movie. So we've been seeing. So that's been coming up in the conversation. So this is kind of hitting on the zeitgeist a little bit. So I blame the grandmother. The grandmother obviously wasn't equipped to handle the situation she was dealt. And I get it. It's no grandparent's fault to get grandchildren suddenly thrust upon them, but. Yeah, I was very annoyed with everybody in this first episode. You too, like, cause girl, what you like? You cutting the child every
month.
Every month. You come in here like the police every month, abusing this boy and harassing him with questions, like and with not even a drop of compassion for him, like. Yeah, I don't know. The first episode was very hard for me to get through, and I was like, I almost didn't keep going.
Honestly, Brent, I had a similar feeling too because I was like, I kind of see where this is going, but man, LP talks a lot about this show, and I'm like, I don't like what's happening, and I don't. That's okay. To be fair, the sister, every time that girl is on the screen, I can't with that girl. You know what I mean? And it gets worse throughout. But we'll talk about it. But I don't know. I was with you, but I was willing to power through. By the time I got to the second episode, I was like, okay, I'm in. This is fine. I'll be okay.
So let's contextualize a little bit. So Jessica is Nathan's older sister, and essentially, his father swooped in on her mom, and so after Nathan was born, they were kind of pariahs in the Fairborn witch society because he was the child of the wolf, and the wolf, his name is Marcus Kane.
Yeah. Marcus Edge.
Marcus Edge. Sorry. Marcus Edge is he essentially single-handedly massacred a group of like the ruling class of the Fairborns, right?
What, Wolfhaven or something like that?
Wolfhagen, yeah.
Wolfhagen, yeah.
And he's a bad man. And so because people treated them that way, and she didn't have anything to do with it, and she's white and her brother is mixed, clearly it's better to just blame it on him. And then Celia is the hunter who's assigned to assess him every month. So she cuts him. She asks him if he has any negative feelings toward Fairborn witches. She cuts him to see if he heals faster than a Fairborn witch.
If he hears
heartbeats, if he has any dreams about harming people, and can he hear heartbeats? Because apparently, his father's okay. One more thing: his father, Marcus Edge, steals people's powers, and he does so by ripping their hearts out and eating them. And so he has a bunch of powers. And so one of the things, for whatever reason, they know that he can hear heartbeats, and so they keep asking Nathan, "Can you hear my heartbeat right now?"
And ironically, besides for the heartbeat question, every one of those questions she should have been asking Jessica.
Right?
Like, that psychopath. Like, are you thinking about harming people? I don't think I legitimately have not despised a character like that in such a long time. Like every episode, I was just like, I want harm to come to her. Yeah. I don't feel bad about it. Like, I legitimately want her to suffer.
When it looked like she was going to be like finally thwarted, I was like, oh, thank God. Finally. But then she just, I don't know. Don't get me started on that.
No, she got worse.
Nick, what you got?
What's up, Nick?
So, like, let's talk about the, like, not to steal or anything, like the writing of Jessica, because we all have the same thoughts and feelings. Why does she work as a villain? Like, that's one, I'm curious on your guys' thoughts. The thing I noticed, right? Her first speech line was, "It's all your fault. You did this." And it's like, girl, you 5. Like, what is going on? She works as a villain so well. Now, there's some issues that I have, right? Like, why she's so mean and spiteful when she's very, very secluded, and the grandmother does not hold the same sway in opinion. I don't get that. It doesn't make sense. It's broken for me. So I struggle with the first episode too, right? But as we go on, we see that her character is deeply rooted into this hate that the rest of the Fairborns have. Yet she's an outsider as well. Interesting character arc there. Brent?
So I think it works because there's less psycho antagonists for her to bounce off of.
Yeah.
If she was purely the only antagonist in the show, I don't think it would work, because it would just be like, this is too much. This is because she is legitimately a sociopath. Like, there's just no other explanation. Like,
yes, I think that's being too kind. I'm sorry.
She's been through some stuff, but she is just she's true. I think even, let's just say the perfect scenario happened and her mama didn't die, she would have been talking about cutting up her mama too at some point. Like, that girl is legitimately crazy. And this is why I blame the grandma, because grandma should have saw that and be like, yeah, you need to go to an institution. Like, it needs to be like that. But I think she works because there's Soul there too, who's a different kind of antagonist. There's Mercury, who's a different kind of antagonist. So I think the variation of it allows her crazy to shine, because, she's not the only thing that, like, he's worried about.
But she also works because she's kind of a weapon you can point back at him, right?
Yeah, she's a Zula, just like a little tweet, but
yeah. I mean, you also have all these other mechanisms in place too. You've got, Annalise's dad who's trying to do his thing, and you got all this stuff, other factions and stuff at play here. So I think you're right, Brent. I think it works because she is insane, but she needs to be contained and like fired at somebody, because otherwise it's just batshit crazy. But what were you gonna say, LP?
I think the thing though is that like in the first episode, she's kind of the least of his problems because she's shitty at him and he's funny and he can throw it back at her. And he's like, it's not a big deal. He's also dealing with like Annalise's brother and cousin. And he's also dealing with Celia. And like, there's teenage shit happening. And it just looks like teenage shit until she becomes a hunter.
Yeah. Once she's given a little bit of power, then that's when she becomes a real threat. But the other thing, and I think this says something about so if we're gonna take back the race here, this says something about the way that certain groups of people will use the craziest elements of their group to do their dirty work, so they don't have to feel so bad about it.
How about that?
Because Soul was definitely on some, well, I'm just doing what I have to do to survive. So I'm going to take this clearly disturbed girl and elevate her to be my weapon and tool. And it's not my fault. I'm just using what's available in front of me. Like, I can't, she is who she is. I'm just trying to make the best of it.
Okay, so in the first episode, Nathan goes to a party and he tells his friends that he's a witch. And they're like, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as witches. Why can't we go to your house? He's like, I live in a caravan and my grandma's a witch. And then this girl, Annalise, walks up to him. You shouldn't say that because you're a witch. There's no such thing as witches. What are you talking about? I'm a fairborn. And she was like, oh, wait, for real? I've never met a fairborn other than outside my family. And then she's like, oh, my dad runs the Fairborn Hunters. And her father is Soul. Soul is
the Fairborn Council. Yeah.
Soul's a piece of shit we keep talking about.
Well, and the Soul part, I find, I mean, especially if you're going to write a villain, like, the true antagonist of the piece. I mean, the fact that he has to embody what all the Fairborns hate so much, I think is really what is kind of powerful in this particular TV show, because he has to basically do what Marcus Edge did in order to, I don't know, beat Marcus Edge, become better, become stronger, become whatever he's trying to be. You know what I mean? These rituals and you know what I mean? Yeah, to actually have some power, right?
So I have such complicated feelings about Soul because, well, wait, am I getting ahead of things here? Because
we only have so much time, so get ahead if you need to.
I started with the first episode just because we needed to jump it off.
Okay, well, so with Soul, like, in the beginning of the show, I had some degree of sympathy for him because I was like, okay, this is a man who tried to end the conflict, who tried to do something to end it.
Could you explain that?
So when he kind of like reached out to Marcus and was like, hey, we need some peace here. Let's try to meet and make some kind of peace talks happen between Fair and Blood here. So I felt for him to some degree, because this peace that he tried to create ended up getting sabotaged by both sides. I think he blames Marcus, obviously, because Marcus came in there, was like, nah, I want some justice first. He went Kiyoshi on their ass and was like, he's like, I want some justice before this peace. And so he killed a bunch of people and peace didn't happen. And old boy Soul kind of got looked at as like, yo, you got a whole bunch of people killed. You brought us here for nothing. But really,
ask you something?
Yeah.
So do you think that Soul brought him there thinking that the Fairborn... See, my perception was that... Okay, so Soul invited Marcus Edge to Wolfhagen, which is where Marcus Edge proceeded to murder every fucking body except for 2 people.
Yeah.
They were Soul and Celia, because Celia was 6 and Soul was hiding with Celia under the stairs.
I thought it was a closet. Bitch. Huh? I thought it was a closet.
Yeah, some closet or something.
Whatever, little bitch.
Yeah, they were hiding. Yeah, he hid. Yeah.
I don't blame the little girl. I blame the little bitch. So so I thought that Soul knew that they were going to make these demands of the of the blood witches.
See, and this is probably why I needed to do, or wish I had to chance to do a rewatch, because from what I recollect, at least, it seemed like he wasn't like that. He thought that there was a chance this shit might work, but also too, I think it could be both. It could be he knew these demands were going to happen, but in his mind, he probably didn't think the demands were that unreasonable. He probably like, I mean, how many good white folk think like, oh, that's not asking so much. Like this,
Right.
yeah, why
It's just the world.
a good deal? Why can't you see that? And Mark would be like, fuck y'all. Like, what you mean?
No,
Marshall,
but I
I'm
think
gonna call on you, but first, could you tell us why Marcus Edge massacred everybody?
why?
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to say that because they deserved it, but honestly, like I don't know. I did not walk away from that show thinking what Marcus Edge did at Wolfhagen was like unjustified, based on what we were given about the past of the two factions, right? He decided that was his moment to, I don't know, get a leg up on his competition. Maybe. I'm not saying he was right to do it, but at the same time, like, I mean, it was awful. But I feel like I'm kind of, I don't know if Brent said this exactly, but with Soul inviting him there, like we have that part of the story, and I think this is from a writing perspective kind of brilliant because okay, what we know is Soul invited Marcus Edge there to have a truce. That's the story that everybody is being told. I don't know it, from what I know of Soul later, I think whatever he was planning went to shit and Marcus killed everybody. Like, like that's kind of like, I can't help but think that because from what I see from Soul later. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, yeah. But the story we're told is Soul was like, oh, we can make a peace, and then Marcus fucked it up. I don't know. It seems like two opposing factions telling a version of the same story, which I think is what drives this entire plot of the show, right?
Well, I think in addition to that is like the victor gets to write history. The thing is that they have two different ideas about who the victor is.
Right.
Nick, go ahead.
So here's my thing. Soul did something.
Soul
in episode 3, it's like Marcus is going after the 10 selected people one by one, and the last person to know the secret of what Soul did dies. Very cool scene, by the way. Loved it. Hey, you see how many fingers broken? That's the finger that she gave us up on. Very cool line. But they did something happened. They brought the Bloods there on bad faith, and I think Marcus snapped in retaliation and won. That's this is what I'm thinking this happened. I think they negotiated in bad faith, and it wasn't necessarily going to be a negotiation. It was going to be more or less a surrender. So let's talk about elements, right? You have to give up this, this, and this. You can't do this anymore. You can't do it anymore. They're literally wiping out their culture, which is a whole nother issue and topic of imperialism that this show discusses. So that's what I took away from it is they're not trying to negotiate. They're trying to control.
Well, the Brits are gonna Brit. So in at least in the TV show, because I watched it 13 times. My bad, y'all. I'm asking y'all questions. I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean this to be a test. So essentially, the Fairborn witches have been killing blood witches for years, and a part of blood witch culture is that they eat the hearts of the people in their family, and so the powers that these people have are passed down through that lineage. So them killing people without without the blood witches eating their hearts is actually like kind of a form of theft. It's they've taken away the capacity for ancestor worship. So when Marcus was going there, he was going there to get some fucking justice. But they were like, well, this is what you can do, because they really thought that like they had some leverage. Marcus killed them all. single-handedly. And then he ate their hearts and took their powers. And that's why everyone's scared of Marcus, which is great because he is that bitch. But that's also why the Blood Witches love him.
Okay.
Yeah, but them French Blood Witches weren't shit either.
Oh, the ones with Homeboy and
the ones in Paris, yeah, they weren't shit either. Yeah, like I was.
No.
Well, and that was
that
one
group
thing
that ticked me off. I'll be honest. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's the truth. They did. I was annoyed with them. I was like, damn.
I just wanted them to be. I wanted them to be less murky. Like there was like they felt like mercenaries a bit instead of like an independent I don't know, free thinking body. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed like again, they're just like, okay, well, we're told to do this, let's go do this. And like they're just so shady all the time.
They're
acolytes.
No, but that's what I get it. But I'm saying like that how do I want to say this?
They weren't thinking for themselves. They weren't thinking smartly by any stretch of the imagination. Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you. That.
Well, I need to run back just a little bit because we've started talking about France and we haven't talked about the French dude yet, and we still haven't talked about Annalise and her development.
Oh yeah, the French dude is important. Yeah.
Okay, so Annalise is when Blood Witches turn 17. They have to drink blood from someone in their family, and then they're given 3 gifts. Annalise drank the blood, and she thought she was going to get the same powers that her dad can grow plants, and her mom can play with light, and she thought it would be the same thing. And when, in fact, this bitch eviscerates people, she takes them apart from the inside out. They fly up for a second, and they fall and splash blood on everything. And it's amazing, because she's scared as shit. Okay, great. So when Nathan beats up her brother, beats him to a pulp because he fucking deserved it, because he and Jessica bled him out in a warehouse, Nathan goes to school and beats the shit out of this kid, and then the hunters come and get him. And Annalise is like, "Where's Nathan?" She's like, "Bitch, if you don't get the fuck out of here." And so at one point they cross paths while he's breaking out of the facility, and they run. But before he left, his grandmother contacted Mercury. Mm-hmm. And Mercury put a map on his hand. And so the map took them later on when they were by themselves to Gabriel, the Frenchman. He's an alchemist. He's a gay. And he knew that Mercury wanted him to bring Nathan to her. But Nathan wasn't going anywhere without Annalise. And he was annoyed because Annalise is annoying.
She is annoying.
And then they go to France, and shit happens, and Gabriel's friends find out that Nathan is Marcus Edge's child, and there's a prophecy that he will kill his father. And what's the prophecy?
The wolf will kill by the son or something, or by the child.
The wolf will die by his own blood,
the hand of his blood, or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so in order to ensure that prophecy doesn't happen, they try to kill Nathan. Gabriel comes back, saves them. They go deeper into France, and they meet the rural French witches. Okay, now we can talk more.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up the prophecy though, because then that kind of brings it back to.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Another reason his grandma ain't shit. You mean to tell me grandma. You had a resource to help this boy the whole damn time, and you wait until the 11th hour to use it? This boy has been living in poverty. He's been getting his ass whooped. He's getting felt up by Fairborns and cut every month. And you wait. And I get it. Mercury ain't shit either, and she's her own kind of dangerous. But
I kind of have a thing about Mercury. But continue. Sorry.
It's you can't have told me that you couldn't have done something for this boy. You wait until the last possible moment to give him what seems like some help. And also too, you had all these years to try to build some kind of out for this kid. You had to have known this day was coming. You just sat around living in your trailer park, not doing shit,
eating bonbons,
knowing that this boy was dealing with this shit. You knew who his daddy was. Why weren't you trying to get him to his father or something? Anything.
Something. Yeah.
Give him free, baby.
Something.
Because his daddy's evil.
But look, here's the thing.
That's what I'm saying. That goes back to the whole critique of people who have biracial children and they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And they don't know the right way to handle it.
Well, not just that, but like for context, in the books, they're not fair-born and blood witches.
Oh, it's black and white.
They're white witches and black witches, and all the blood witches are black. Look at your face.
Stop it. No, that can't be true. What?
Yes.
Because all the blood witches are black in the books.
The showrunners were like, let's change it to something less insanely problematic.
Yeah.
I mean,
The books were like, nah, these Negroes are evil.
full stop. So the other part of it, so the thing about it that makes it crazy though is that like when Nathan goes to live with Celia, that bitch has him living in a cage outside while she's living in the cottage, and like has him like exercise him to death, and was like, do it again. And so like the abuse doesn't end when he leaves his grandmother's house.
And this is why it is so hard for me. It made it hard for me to like, with what happens to her character. I know it was supposed to be a moment of like great, like, oh, this is angsty, and I'm sorry. No, I don't give a shit. You let this child suffer, and and again, it's like everyone in his life
fails him,
and they decide in the 11th hour to try and do the right thing. It's like you kept a child in a cage. Like, I don't want to hear shit about what you went through as a child. You witnessed the massacre. You obviously were traumatized by it. And instead of therapy, because that's what she needed to sit in somebody's chair and talk it out. She decides to project all that trauma and rage onto a child.
So look, guys, because we're writing podcasts, I'm curious about something. I get, we write characters people don't like, right? But I want to, if we think about poor Nathan, and Brent, I think you hit the nail on the head, rattled off all of the bullshit that's happened to him growing up, right? I guess what I'm wondering is, this is a bad question. Was all that necessary in order to get the payoff? Did we get the payoff at the end? My concern is like this poor kid. I mean, are we really just sitting and watching the torture of this child?
Well, he's black.
Or this black kid, this black queer kid, right? Or did we need all of that in order for him to fully realize who he is? Because at the end, or towards the end, because we're eventually going to run out of time, at some point, when that time runs out, right, his father appears to him and basically helps him out anyway, right? So like, I mean, I just feel like it's kind of like, I don't want to bring up the other thing, but it just feels like it's a lot more than it needs to be.
Say it.
You know what I mean?
I
don't want to bring up what's her name. Anyway, go ahead, Brent.
Okay, well, for me, I would say I think it is worth it, mainly because of the fact that during this whole episode, I'm talking about the characters and I'm talking about the story, and I'm not talking about the writing. Like, I think it would be an issue if I was saying like, man, that was a dumbass choice. Like, what they do that for? Like, no. Instead, I'm like, this character, I just want to punch him. It's like, like they got me invested in even the worst characters. I was still invested in those characters.
Yeah.
And I think I think it was necessary, I think, to tell the story. But also too, I think it's I feel like it's frustrating for me, not the writing, but the story. I think the reason it works and why it frustrates me so much is because it doesn't give you any answers to the complexities. It just lets it be complex.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, this person's a contradiction, but I'm not going to try to untie the knot for you. They're just going to be a contradiction, so deal with it.
Right.
And that's frustrating. It's like, ugh.
Well, I want to throw out there that the only person who ever actually tried consistently to do right by Nathan was Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like thinking about when they get to the rural French part, where we get a little of it when they're in the bar in France, and like people talk about Marcus Edge for the first time with reverence, right? Mm-hmm. But when we get to rural France and they find out that he's Marcus Edge's child, like they're celebrating him. They want him to stay for the name day, which is the day that the 17th birthday where the people get the blood. There were French twins who were about to turn 17, so they made them stay. But they showed the ritual of eating the hearts of some fairborns who were stalking through France where they had no business, and they had Granny eat the hearts, and she got the heart powers. And it was like, yeah, this is like a part of our culture. And it was like, this is the first time that we see that Nathan sees that like this other side of him, which is clouded in mystery, is like a rich and vibrant culture.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because I'm right now, and this is just because, what I teach, but right now I'm teaching my 11th graders. We're reading a work by a Native American author, and we're talking about, the land we're living on. It was Native American land, all this stuff. And and I really start the unit by talking about rituals and culture. And like, because a certain section of people, Christian, white, whatever, think your culture is X, Y, and Z, doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to practice your culture. Right. So it's like, that's why I think, like Brent said, I mean, I'm fascinated to find out what happens with any of these characters because of how like, I don't know how contentious it is between these factions and these cultures, right? I don't know.
Well, what I find, to the point about Gabriel, what I find so interesting with that is that the only person who looks out for Nathan is another abused teenager. Because in the books, Gabriel's supposed to be 19. I know he looks a little older on the show, but...
Yeah, he do.
Yeah, he looks a little older. But yeah, I just find it interesting that it takes someone who's been abused to be able to see, like, no, this ain't right. Like, this is not, you need to get away from this. Because, I mean, Mercury had him running errands, and she was out here stealing memories left and right from the kid.
Child.
And once we found out that all of that backstory, I mean, they sprinkled it throughout, but that was heartbreaking. Gabriel's story is, I think, one of the more fascinating stories in this work, to be honest. I mean, it's like,
so glad he got an episode.
Yeah, and it's like, he's carrying around this book, and in the beginning you're like, why do you need this kid's book, dude? Like, what the hell? But then you see the weight that book carries for him. I don't know. I loved his story more than I think almost any other one.
I guess we should also mention that, like, there is a will she, won't she for a while between Nathan and Annalise. And then there's like, then it's like, well, I know that Gabriel will do Nathan, but will he do Annalise too?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a moment me and Kate were sitting there talking, and we're like, the three of them are just okay. Let's see what happens. This is good. They're all together. This sounds good. Let's see what happens. So I don't know. I like that storyline.
So we're coming up on 40 minutes. So I'm going to say something to kind of blow your mind. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Y'all know how I teach that class, Fix It Jesus, where like we turn something on its head to try to get something else out of it.
Yeah.
Bring it closer to our energies. This is Harry Potter.
I know.
Oh, I thought that.
That's what I almost didn't mention a minute ago. I said I didn't want to mention her because this is Harry Potter.
I was trying to like.
I was doing something.
That first episode is clearly an extrapolation of having to live under the Dudleys, whatever,
the stairs, or whatever. Yep.
Yeah.
And then instead of Hermione and Ron getting together, they both get with Harry.
Oh, what was in the back of my mind when I was talking earlier about this, like, payoff of abuse, which is a bad way of saying it, but like looking at what Harry Potter went through and then looking at what Nathan's going through, it's like all of those things, all that cycle of abuse, right? The parents, the step parents, whatever, if we're talking about Harry Potter or whatever, it's brutal. And this is a young adult medium, right? So we're watching these kids go through this stuff, and it's rough. I don't know. There were some moments in this I was like, God damn, can these kids get a break? And then that sister comes back in. I was like, God damn you. I said, if you come back on the screen again, girl, I swear to God.
Yeah. No, she was, every time she popped up, it was like, you knew some just awful shit was going to happen. Like,
yeah,
100%. She was something else twice.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to us? If we're equating this to Harry Potter, and we don't want to keep, I'm not going to mention the author's name, but if we're mentioning that similar storyline, like,
I don't think it's similar story wise. I think it's similar setup wise.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And so along that line, I'm like, one of the things about Harry Potter is that, like, you know, there is a lot of like subtext of like compulsory, compulsive loyalty, and because Harry is white and British and civilized, he did the things that he did for justice, and I love that Nathan's like, no, bitch, this is revenge. My father just saved my life, and I'm about to kill this man. and and he doesn't. Annalise kills her father. Spoiler warning, too late. Annalise kills her father, and she also fulfills the prophecy: the wolf will die by his own blood.
Yeah.
We should go back. Sorry. So Soul experimented on Nathan, killed his grandmother. Soul also killed his own brother in order to cast a spell that would allow him to take on some blood witch stuff by taking blood from Nathan. And he began to be a person who could steal people's powers by eating their hearts. He was gearing up to fight Marcus Edge, but then in the end, Nathan was going to go fight him, and Annalise showed up and like eviscerated him. And it was just like,
yeah. And also, additional context: she eviscerated his ass because he let Psycho Jessica convince him that he needed to eat his own daughter's heart because his daughter had a power that Marcus didn't have.
And that moment towards the end there, where she's like literally standing behind Annalise, yelling at the dad, at Soul, and being like, no, you have to do this thing. You have to do this thing. You have to eat your own daughter's heart, did not help that girl's case at all for me. But the payoff, though, it made it, and it went with the prophecy, like you said, Brent. It makes so much sense. The only person that could have killed Soul was the daughter with that. What was the power of the undoing? Was it undoing? Unmaking, something like that.
Yeah.
Basically
pulling somebody's whole body parts apart and then letting it drop on the floor in a wet mess, which was really fun to watch. I'll be honest.
It really was. I was like, if you can handle body horror, the body was horroring. It was definitely doing that.
But what I also liked that I thought was interesting that it showed that like when she learns to control that shit, it's gonna be way more than just some bloody, gory destruction. Because she was able to deconstruct that poison and get it out of oh boy. Like, so when she really learns some fine-tuned control of that shit, yeah, she's gonna be deadly.
And by the end of the season, like, Nathan actually doesn't have any powers yet. Like, that's not true. After she eviscerates her father, she, Gabriel, and Nathan are like, oh God, what do we do next? And then they all look at his heart. It was like, Nathan, how many powers did you need today? Let's go.
Right. Because you're going to get some now. You're going to be lit.
And I kept telling Kate, I was like, he's going to eat his heart. He needs to eat his heart. He must eat his heart. And then although we didn't see it, come on. Dude had to eat that heart and get all that.
I mean, but also, like, thank you, Netflix, for giving us a great show that you canceled before.
I know.
Before you did any promo for it.
Because I feel like Jessica's worst acts were still in front of her. I feel like she had so much more horrible things she was going to be, especially with Mercury as a mentor.
That's the thing. Mercury has a mad-on for Gabriel.
Yeah.
And Gabriel stole blood to give to Nathan, right? So now she's mad at Nathan as well.
Yeah. So like that partnership, if season 2 had been allowed, that partnership was going to do some damage because those that honestly that was like giving me like Mr. Sinister Sabretooth vibes, like those two working together.
All right. So now that we've kind of talked through the plot of the show, since it's a writing podcast, we should probably try to bring this back to craft a little bit. What craft wise can we pull from this? And I know this is a different medium than we write in, but it's story is story in my opinion. So what did the writers do well? And I don't know if we need to go back to the Harry Potter thing or not, but I mean, what from this can we pull and use in our work? I have to ask that question.
I mean, I think most of the characters were really beautifully motivated. Even if I didn't agree with the ways that they responded to their motivations, like I understood why Jessica was fucking Jessica. I understood why Soul was Soul. I understood why Marcus Edge was Marcus Edge. I understood why Nathan was Nathan. Everybody except for Annalise.
Yeah. Brent, what were you gonna say?
No, honestly, that was exactly what I was going to say. Each and every character in that show had something going on that had nothing to, well, I'm not going to say nothing, but that wasn't fully dependent on Nathan's story, right? Like Gabriel definitely, he had his own issues, his own past, his own things going on. And I think that,
Obviously.
yeah, and I think that's what makes the show work really well, is that all these characters are fully formed and fleshed out, and like pretty much could probably each be the star of their own story, and they all collide together in these interesting ways, and like their motivations bump up against each other, and sometimes they align, sometimes they don't, and it just created really, I don't know, it felt really fleshed out, and it didn't feel static, it didn't feel like flat, like everyone was kind of doing their thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that all the character arcs were not only well written, but with TV shows sometimes, especially if they anticipate future seasons, some characters will get more screen time than others, right? I feel like every character arc was contained enough in this particular season, with maybe the exception LP mentioned, but I mean, I feel like that is those of us that write, trilogies or duologies or, that kind of thing. You have to be able to contain it in one book, close those arcs out, but also leave it open to future stuff. Like I'm like LP said, I'm stoked to see what Annalise can do with this insanely powerful power she's got. We won't see it on the screen, but I mean, the fact that we're thinking about it means that it worked.
I mean, look, as much as I hate Veruca Salt, like the real issue here is that like it's a British show that doesn't die of pacing.
Mm.
Some of the things that they did with magic, like when they did like that psychometry scene where they recreated the scenes in negative space, like some of these,
Oh yeah,
it's not the special effects per se, so much as like how smartly they decided to address some of the things that they did in the absence of people and in the absence of character. And when you see shit like that, it kind of lets you know that you're in the hands of a strong storyteller. And you're like, whoa, I haven't seen that before, which is something that I thought, particularly during that scene, I haven't seen that before. I'd like, yeah. The other thing that I always want to bring up is just like the way that people lost their shit anytime that they knew the Blood Witches were around. Like everyone stopped being rational. It just turned to, and you would think that like the Blood Witches had spent 20 years terrorizing Fairborns, and like it really reminded me a lot of it reminds me a lot of now, the way that people have decided that pick your poison group of people. Let's go with trans people. The way people have decided that trans people are a threat, and have this weird overreaction to anything that has to do with trans people. And the Blood Witches hadn't been in England. They hadn't been in England, but everyone's like stocking up on armaments.
Yeah.
Well, it's the overreaction that's needed to, one, justify your cruelty, but also to reframe it in a way that like, oh, I'm just protecting myself from this great, astonishing evil. And that's
Negroes.
yeah, like how dare they be so vicious and threatening, and then everyone, and it becomes and that's one of the smart things about the show too. I feel like one of the things that I liked about the show a lot is that like, even though and let me preface this, I'm not talking shit about YA, because I think that people get a little sensitive when you start these, but it knew to get through the parts of it that we always see in other YA shows. It knew to like, okay, I'm giving you the setup, I'm giving you this, giving you the school, giving you the love triangle, I'm giving you all this, but let's move from it quickly and let's get into the wider world. Let's get into the wider adventure. Let's dig into some of the more thematic parts. And I thought that was smart too, because I think the problem sometimes with some of these adaptations of young adult books is that they get too mired in the well trodden genre tropes or category tropes that like we all know them. Assume we know them. And I like that the show did that. The show assumed we knew them and gave us the real quick setup, and then it hit the gas pedal. So,
and we spent so much time in the other part of the world. We spent so much time in the grown-up part of the world that, like, you know, even when, like, there's the we're running away, it was like, okay, girl, whatever you say, you know. But like, and they found their way. But like, when they found their way, they didn't find their way like, oh, look, we found a group of teenagers. We're going to sleep in a tenement together. It's like, no, this is a mature group of witches. This is a deep coven, and y'all gonna learn today. And they had to step out of their experience and like really deal with other people's lives.
Yeah, there wasn't any of that kumbaya magical meetup stuff. Like, it was very much like, okay, you want to be grown? Well, go be grown and see what happens.
You gonna see this grown shit.
Yeah. Which is why I kind of think like Marcus was trying to tell him at the end. It was like, okay, you're going to be grown out here. You're going to have to deal with some hard lessons, and I'm not always going to be here.
Okay. Can we talk about Marcus showing up?
Okay.
That was ugh.
So did it work or did it not work? Because I was curious about this too. We're running out of time. So LP, tell me.
Go LP.
Or Brent, doesn't matter.
I loved it because the wolf was at the door and they've been running scared from him throughout most of the fucking season, and he shows up, and he didn't show up haphazardly. He wasn't even there to fuck with Dum Dum. He was there because his son was there and his mom was dead.
Yeah.
He was there to give him his gifts. He was there to tell him that his mother was never afraid of him and always loved him. He was there to give him his life, and he was there to give him this knife and the opportunity to kill fucking Soul. And like, the prophecy is the prophecy. So like, the power that Marcus got from Jessica's father was the ability to see when one dies, when
your end comes, yeah.
And so there's a good chance that like Nathan is going to kill Marcus, but he knew that day was not the day that Nathan would kill Marcus.
Yeah.
And so he came and he didn't come. He hadn't been there in 17 fucking years, but he came to ensure that his son would survive.
But I'm with you. Sorry, Brent, you go ahead first. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. I've been talking a lot. You go.
No. I look. My thing is, I was thinking to myself when he showed up, I was like, this is the moment where he has to show up, right? This is the moment where he has to be there to support his son. I feel like he was always in the background. I always had that kind of feeling like he was in the background and maybe watching and being like, well, no matter what, I've got to be there on his name day or whatever it was, or, his 17th birthday in order to give him his gifts, so that he can do what he's meant to do. Right. And I never got the feeling that he abandoned his son because he didn't want to be there for him. I feel like he was there, but just had to be, he could only be there at that time. You know what I mean? I don't know. I thought it was a nice kind of moment, personally.
Yeah, I do think it came together well. And I do think what I liked about it was that, like, they didn't, because it would have been an easy narrative choice to, like, let Nathan walk away from that feeling fulfilled and some closure or whatever. Like, no, you can tell Nathan walked away from that still feeling all kinds of fucked up and confused and not really sure, like, how to feel about this man that, like, fair, and from Nathan's viewpoint, fair enough to feel this way. This man was not in your life. And for whatever the reasons are, good, bad, great, brilliant, he was not there and left you there with these people who treated you like shit your whole life. Like, regardless of his, and I love that, right? Like, regardless of his reasons, because I think we all agree, like, Marcus is like, he's out there fighting the good fight probably, but he left behind someone he loved. And I like that critique too. I think for me, at least, it felt like a critique of sometimes doing the work of activism, doing the work of liberation, doing the work of freedom. Well, it's some of our people doing that. They leave their loved ones behind, and their loved ones get caught in the crossfire of it. And how do we negotiate that? How do we deal with that? So, yeah.
I mean, you also see that a lot in immigrant families where parents leave their children with somebody so they can go out and and provide.
Yeah.
Right.
I've worked with several people, and especially in restaurants and stuff, where they're away from their families and here working and sending money back. Like you
Right.
just, that you do what you need to do for that family. I also really like too that we didn't see, I think this was mentioned before, I think LB did, but I like that we didn't see Nathan's power yet. And we don't know what what his future really is. I think if they had shown us that, it would have been a little, I don't know. I like that piece of writing. I like, okay, we'll leave it up for that's for the next one or the next time, right?
Yeah, now it won't happen because Netflix.
Oh yeah. Thanks Netflix.
Somebody needs to go ahead and write a serial numbers filed off sequel or something.
Come on, fan fiction.
Isn't there a book series that picks up or no?
I think it was
I can't read that book series. Come on now, not the Black Witches and the White Witches.
I'm not reading the Negroes are bad in the corner over there.
That's not something.
You know what this book is, what this story is, though? The way that Nathan goes to France and finds out that the other half of his lineage is like powerful and like this is deep, this is good, this is just. It actually, I'm sorry, I had to watch this movie because I was on a plane. I was like, I just had to see the Magical Society of Magical Negroes, American Society of Magical Negroes, because the mixed kid finds out through the course of the movie. Sorry, the protagonist of that movie is a mixed guy, and he finds out through the course of the movie that he matters.
Oh,
just like Nathan finds out that he matters, and I'm just like, wow, y'all really don't think shit about mixed people, huh?
And this has been Just Keep Writing, a podcast for writers, by writers, to keep you writing. You can find us at justkeepwriting.org. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Feel free to reach out to any of us on our social medias, and please jump in our Just Keep Writing Discord channel. Links to all of that is in the show notes. Lastly, please support our show by going to patreon.com/justkeepwriting. We offer daily writing prompts, early access to podcast episodes, and much more. Thanks for listening, and just keep writing.